And welcome, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
Amen. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, let's see what I can do there. We are in Parshat vaY'chi. It is the very final Parsha of the book of Genesis. And we are into that part of the parsha where of the quote blessing that Jacob is giving his sons. The reason I say blessing in quotes because some of the statements he makes aren't so much blessings. That many of them do contain certainly words of blessing. In some ways, it's a prophecy, is what it is. Regardless, it is written in poetry. It is quite dense and there's a lot of Rashi on it because a lot of it requires quite a bit of interpretation, and we will do the best we can. So, for example, look at this. Here's the Onkelos for this verse right there. We did it the last time. Here is the Onkelos on that. Look at it all the way down to there. So he runs pretty freely in terms of trying to help us understand the poetry. We are now on to Jacob's statement. This is, of course, the his prior to his departure from this world, and that's essentially why the book of Genesis comes to a close with his parting and also finally Joseph's parting. Here we are in Naphtali. So in the tribe of Naphtali, but here it's his son, right? Naphtali. Ayala, a female deer, guess maybe a roe. Shlucha, let loose, Hanoten Imre Shafer, who brings forth excellent fawns. The word shapir sounds like it might be related to the word superior, and maybe it is, but it means excellent. And this Imre here refers to the fawns of this, and clearly it's speaking metaphorically, right? So here we are. Ayala Shlucha, a a a female deer sent free. So look at this. He says that Zo Bekat Ginosar. This it refers to the valley of Ginosar. Ginosar, I think, is possibly a Greek word, a Greek derivation. It has to do with the Kinneret, right? That Lake Tiberias or the Sea of Galilee. It has quite a number of names, and the reason it's called a harp, a Kinneret, and Ginosar has to do with its shape, the shape of it. It's in the shape of, in a way, of a harp. So this is the valley. It's a very fruitful part of Israel, and Naphtali was given this area in the land of Canaan, in the land of Israel, up in the north, right? So he says, Shehi kala levashel peroteha. Basically, this valley is noted that its fruits ripen very easily. Ayalazo, just like this row, Shehi Kalalarutz, which runs so swiftly. And just in that same way, the fruit here in this valley ripens swiftly. Ayala Shlucha. So again, he's Rashi's going to riff on these words, right? This Ayala Shlucha. Ayala Mishulachat Larut. So here he is interpreting it in a more literal kind of way. Mishulachat, set free to to run, to run. Hanoten Imre Shefer, right? Ketargumo. So here he goes and says, this is like the Targum. So let's take a look at the Targum. So here we go. Here we go. Let's see. V'achasante tehi ma'abda perin, and his allotment, his inheritance, will create many create fruit. Yahon modan, they will be acknowledged. Umavarchin alehem, and people will either bless the fruits themselves, right? And these are the Imre Shafar, so could be said words of excellent, or possibly blessing Naphtali for that. Let's take a look at what he says here. Davar acher, another interpretation, al milchemet Sisera, that this is actually an allusion to the war against Sisera. Nitnabeh, he prophesied, and that's found in Judges, the book of Judges, chapter 4. V'lakachta imcha aseret alafim ish mibnei Naphtali. So the reason is that in that chapter, he mentions Barak is told to take with him 10,000 men of Naphtali. V'halchu sham bizrizut, and the fact is they went there with alacrity. They didn't hesitate. They went there readily. V'chein ne'amar sham, and there too is stated a language lashon shiluach, ve'emek, ve'emek, right? Sholeach beraglav, something like that. So something to the effect. It looks to me, right, that it uses that. That term of emek, right? And that they were sent. There's that sent like shlucha, right? And they went. Apparently, Safaria translates that as be'emek sholeach, as some sense of going rapidly, depth of going, baraglav with his legs. Hanoten Imre Shefer, right, who gives words of Shafer is the pausal form. Al Yadam Sharu Dvora Uvarak Shira. So there's the Imre Shefer. By means of them, the Dvora and Barak sang a song. The Rabbotenu Drashua, and our rabbis interpreted it. Al Yom Kvurat Yaakov. They say that it has to do with the day of Jacob's burial. Keshe'ir Esav al Ha'ma'ara, when Esau contested regarding the Ma'ara, the cave of Machpelah, and they he wanted to have him, himself and his family buried there, along with Abraham and Sarah and Isaac and Rebecca. And there's a tradition that included Adam and Eve, right? The Masechet Sota, this argument, this contest was mentioned in the Masechet of Sota on page 13. The Targumo, right? So here we go. Yit Rameh Avdei, I would say, right? His portion will fall Yipol, Chavelo, right? So Yitrame Avdei, I'm going to think, right? Here, Avdei, there it is. Sorry, I'll go back a little bit. Here we can see it. Yitrame, right? Naphtali ba'aratava, Naphtali is in a good land. Yitrame of day, right? So let's take a look at how he's doing this. Yitrame avdai yipol chavalo, his portion will fall. Vahu yodeh al chelcho, and he will acknowledge his portion. Amarim na'im v'shevach, beautiful, pleasant words and praise. So in other words, saying that Naphtali's portion is so lovely that he will give thanks and praise the fact that he received such a wonderful portion. So we didn't really understand, perhaps, Ayalash, this whole statement, the way the rabbis interpret it. According to Rashi, Rashi's a little bit terse about that. But maybe it has to do with the fact that he was arguing with Esau and proving that Jacob deserved to be buried there and not Esau. Something like that, I would have to assume, going on. So this next one is a major prophecy. Ben Porat Yosef. Joseph is I think it's often translated as a fruitful vine. Okay. Ben Porat Ale Ayin, right? A fruitful vine near a well, Ayin, well. Let's take a look at how, let's keep going. We'll finish the verse. Benot Sa'ada, right? Banot Sa'ada Ale Shur. So again, could be Banot, the daughters have tread on the wall. We'll see how this, as I said, this is very terse material, and that's why we need Rashi to help us understand these passages. Right here. Ben Porat, right? Ben Chen. So he says that Porat here has to do with a word that's related to charm, something like that, charm, like charming. Vahu Lashon Arami, right? And he says that is actually an Aramaic derivation here. And here we go, this apirion, right? So there's that peri, right? Porat, apirion. An apirion is actually a palanquin, like a litter, something like that. But it is something that lends charm to an occasion, I think is how that's derived. But the quotation he has is apirion nimtaya, right? Or nimtaye, the Rabbi Shimon. Let us obtain a palanquin for Rabbi Shimon. Safaria translates it a little bit differently. I think Safaria translates something like, let us treat Rabbi Shimon with grace. The intention is the same, however you translate this, right? And that's Besof Baba Metzia. That's at the end of the tractate Baba Metzia, page 118. You can see it's at the end of the tractate. Again, it's not going to end there. There's just a lot to look at. And believe me, I think we're still just, right, skirting the surface. Ben Porat Ale Ayin, right? So he says, Cheno natui al ayin, his gracefulness is stretched out over the to the eye, and here he translates the word ayin as an eye, aroe oto, who sees him, right? So, in other words, people, when it's an expression just to say how clear the beauty and charm of Joseph is. It's impressive. Going on. Benot Tzada Ale Shur. Again, we said this is the daughters have set foot on the wall. Benot Mitzrayim, the daughters of Egypt, Hayut So'adot, they would walk over or march over Alachoma. They would go up to the wall. That's a shore. The word shore can mean a wall. Lehistakel beyofyor, to gaze on his beauty. Uvenot Harbe. Uh, let's see. And there were many daughters, there were many girls. Sa'ada kol achat v'achat, each one of them purposing to go and march up, ubamakom shetuchal liroto, to a place where they would be able to observe him, misham, from there. Davar acher kein tzarich lomar. So apparently there's another interpretation, and this is saying, I believe, that that's the way one has to understand this pshat here, ki leferush rishon, because according to this first interpretation, who shur choma, he understands this term shur as a wall. Okay, and I think this is QED, something like that. Again, Ale Shur. So a different interpretation. And I think he could be saying actually that you need to add these words davar acher, another interpretation, because as you'll see, we're going to understand the words Ale Shur in a different way, and that's why he's saying that the phrase davar acher one has to put in. This could well be his intention here of the editor who set this particular version out. So, Ale Shur, al reiyato, right? Regarding to see him. Kamor. So he's understanding this word sure as meaning to see, to see. Kamor, for example, in the book of Numbers 24, that's the Parsha of Balak, right? And in one of his prophecies, Bilam says, Ashurenu velo karov, I see him, but not near. Umidrashe Agada Yesh Rabim. There are many, many midrashim that give different interpretations of these words. Veze note, but the one he says that I've given this interpretation, Liyashev Hamikra, it is a clear explanation of the meaning of this scriptural verse. Here we go, Porat, the word Porat. Tav, this is that last letter. This is a Tav, right? Shebor, the Tav in this word, hu tikun halashon. He says it's for the sake, it's a stylistic uh, addition here. It's to create a sense of elegant language. Kamo, but tikun lashon would be a matter of style. Kamo, and he gives an example in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, al divrat bnei Adam, right? So there's the tough there. And apparently it has to do with haughtiness. Again, Safaria translates it as haughtiness. So I think, in other words, it could have been al divrei. That would have been the regular way to say this. But divrat is a more elegant way to express this, the haughtiness of human beings. So, sure, so he says, ale sure. He says the word sure is kamo lashur, meaning as if it means to peek, to look. Ale sure, for the sake of sure, for the sake of, well, ale lashur, bishvil lashur. In other words, for the sake of gazing. The Tirgum shel Onkelos, and as to the Aramaic translation of Onkelos, Benot Sa'ada Alei Shur, right? This reference to Benot Sa'ada Alei Shur. Train Shiftin, he says, it refers to the fact that two uh, two tribes, Yifkun mi Benohi, will emerge from his children, V'chule, etc. The Katav Benot al Shem Benot Menashe, and he wrote and the reason it says Benot regarding the daughters of Menashe, Benot Slavchad, referring to the daughters of Slavchad. That's why it doesn't say B'nai, which would be masculine, but it uses the term Benot Slavchad, Shinatlu Chelik Bishnei Avrei Ayarden. So these descendants of the daughters of Slavchad, and the truth is that in the tribe of Menashe, for example, I think half the tribe was on one side of the Jordan and the other half was on the other side of the Jordan. Bare de Yiske, okay. I think Bare here could mean children, I believe. De Yiske Yosef Perot, okay, that Joseph would have many children, much fruit, Lashon Priya Verivia. And he says, that the reason we can use the term fruit is that it says be fruitful and multiply, and it's referring to children. The Yesh Midrashe Agada Bo, right? And there are again other midrashim regarding this, Mit Yashvin Alashon, which again are based on the language here. B'Sha'a Sheba Esav, right? That at the time when Esau came, Likrat Yaakov, to meet Jacob. It's, of course, we read this just a few weeks ago in the let's see, I'm trying to think of the vaYishlach in Parshat vaYishlach, right? The Chulam, in regards to all the other families, that is Jacob's wives and their children. Sorry, here we go. Kadmu ha'imahot lalechet lifnei v'nehem. In that case, the matriarchs preceded their children, right? Lehishtachavot, to bow down, to prostrate themselves to Esau. Uveracho, but with regard to Rachel, Ketiv, it states, Nigash Yosef. It says Joseph went over, Verachel. So it says Joseph and Rachel went over, Vishtachavu, and they bow down. So notice that Joseph comes before Rachel there. Amar Yosef. So Joseph thought to himself, Rasha Hazeh, this wicked individual, referring to Esau, Einav Rama or Eino Rama, he has arrogant eyes, something like that. He is looks down on people, but he looks down in a sense of any kind, not just necessarily to put down, but to feel that when you say that, that these things, in some sense, I have a right to, they're beneath me in that sense, right? Um, Shema yitain, it's possible. Yitain einav be'imi, he will gaze upon my mother. Yatsa lefaneha, so Joseph went out before her, v'shirbev komato, and he extended his height, lichsota, to cover her, Vahu Shebarchu Aviv, and that's referenced by his father blessing him Ben Porat, saying Ben Porat, meaning Higdalta Atzmacha, you have exalted yourself, Yosef Ale Ayin, regarding an eye, right? So this is again the eyes of Esau here, Ayin Shel Esav. Esau's eye, lefichach zachita legudula, and for that reason you merited greatness. But not sada ale shor. So again, we're just going through these very verses and trying to find ways to interpret them and to recognize the poetry involved. So benot sada ale shor lehistakel bacha, to, in other words, these, I believe he's just running on the verse here. In other words, the daughters have marched, I think, have trodden alei shur. In other words, the alei shur, he says, lehistakel bacha, to gaze upon you, betzetcha al Mitzrayim, when you go out over into Egypt, God over Egypt. For od darshuha, and again they interpreted even further the inyan regarding this matter, shelo yishlot bezaro ein hara, so that the people shouldn't cast the evil eye on his offspring. And basically the evil eye comes from the idea of being jealous of someone's success and wishing them evil. And essentially, so it's saying that his children would not create a sense of jealousy amongst other people. V'af kesheberech Menashe ve'Ephraim. And if you go on further, where he is blessing, where Jacob is blessing Menashe and Ephraim, I believe this actually occurred before this passage. In other words, if we look back and see that when Jacob blessed Menashe Ephraim, Becham Degadim, he blessed them as fish, she'ein ein hara sholetet b'hem, because fish, and by the way, that's why sometimes you'll see amulets or necklaces with fish on them, and the idea is that the Ein Hara, the evil eye, has no power over them. And possibly because they're hidden by the waters, but regardless, it could also possibly because of the scales they have, which is reminiscent of armament. Some kind, it's obviously protection for the fish, but there's this belief that fish aren't susceptible to the evil eye. And we'll stop here for today. Okay, how are we doing? Let's see. Okay. Uh, give me a second. So, um, I'll need to check on Judith, I think. We're still recording. Any other comments before I stop the recording? Okay.